Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. If you're here, you already know, top 10 centers coming at you in this video. I'm finally glad to be done with the series. However, I know I said we was gonna get to normal content, but you know, I ended up having a commenter on my last video ask me for an overall top 10, so I will get that out for you guys. Now, it won't be directly after this one. Like I said, I do want to get other videos out, so that'll be probably sometime next week. It will come out, especially because that's one of those top 10s where I'm actually gonna have to sit down, really think about who I'm gonna put in front of the other, because some of these guys I don't want to put it down to preference. I actually want to get to a real reason as to why I put them where I put them on the list. And of course, I want to also be able to have a very true distinction as to why I put people on the list where I put them, because in these top 10s, of course, I've put people that I think are better than other people, but for the most part, it was preference based. It wasn't based on, you know, defensive stats. It wasn't based on offensive stats and other things regarding that nature. I'm gonna do that for that video, so it's gonna require me to sit down a little bit longer and think about that a little bit more. For this video, we're gonna rate the top 10 centers in the NBA. I think some of you guys that have been following me for a while, that know who I do and don't like, you're gonna be pretty surprised by the list, probably by the first person on the list, because I am the biggest hater of that guy. Of course, if you've been with the channel for a while, you know exactly who that guy is. But before we get into the video and talk about that guy and the many others that are on this top 10, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. If you're not new, welcome back to the channel. Comment down below who your top 3 centers are in the NBA and who you think can potentially get into this list at some point in the year. But without further ado, let's hop into the top 10. Coming in at number 10, I have Rudy Gobert. Like I said, if you're a normal follower of the channel, you know I do not like Rudy Gobert. I haven't liked him ever since he's been in Utah, if we're gonna be completely honest. But with that said, he's starting to come around for me, because I can admit he is one of, I'm not gonna say the, but one of the best defensive bigs in the NBA. I will give him top 3 without any hyperbole. Now, of course, the 4 DPOYs leave a nasty taste in my mouth, and I genuinely feel like he doesn't deserve 4. But after talking to some guys over the offseason and realizing that, you know, I can't really blame Rudy for winning the DPOYs. I have to blame the voters, the people who actually have, you know, voting rights, but also they determine what makes you the best defender in the league. Now, in my opinion, being the anchor on the defensive best team, it can obviously point to who the best defender in the league is a lot of the time. However, nuance is missed when we get to that talking point of the situation. Now, with that said, he's in the top 10, and this is more of a positive thing from Rudy Gobert, so I'm not going to get into the DPOY conversation and get into why I didn't really like Rudy for a while also trying to praise him, because I'll admit, while he's not the best offensively, he's not one of those best offensive players by any stretch of the imagination, he's still a very reliable guy. He's a guy that will give you a double-double just about every single night, pretty much guaranteed to. He appears to be very efficient, but he shoots 66%, and majority of his shots are at the rim, which is not very good at all. But with that said, when someone like Anthony Edwards is in a bind and you see Rudy Gobert rolling, he's able to dump it off or even lob it to Gobert for an easy flush, and that is something that Rudy Gobert has gotten better at year over year, while still being one of the best defensive anchors in the NBA. Moving on to number 9, I have Kristaps Porzingis. Now, it's weird to say, because I think I could really realistically move Kristaps to 8, maybe even 9. However, when it comes to his reliability, I don't trust him in that aspect, and also him being on the Celtics, it adds to how much easier his job is on the floor night in and night out. Hell, we saw it in the NBA Finals. He pretty much was there for one game. Of course, he had a freak injury, so I'm not blaming him for that. He was there for the one game to kind of give them that edge, and essentially the series was over from that point forward. After Kristaps started, what, 6 for 6, 7 for 7, he went absolutely bonkers with his first couple shots, hitting that high post mid-range shot and helping the Celtics go up 1-0. he essentially didn't have to do anything else from that point forward, and that's almost what it feels like this year. He's gonna have all year to get healthy, and by the time he does come back to play for the Boston Celtics, it's gonna be so much easier for him to be able to ingratiate himself and fit in, because he's essentially an upgrade from Al Horford. Big Al, of course, knows the offense like the back of his hand, so it's very easy to plug and play Al Horford, especially when Kristaps Porzingis gets injured. But when it's time for Kristaps Porzingis to actually play, which is pretty much playoff time, because at that point Al Horford will be gassed, they have a perfect formula for how it's going to work, because Al Horford, he's had the year as a whole to get into form, so he's not coming off the bench, because Kristaps, again, he's hurt. When it comes to playoff time and Al Horford does that, he really needs that little bit of time on the bench more than he would usually have. You have Kristaps ready and waiting with fresh legs. Now, Kristaps was a 27-2 kind of guy last year, shooting 51% from the field and 37% from three. He appeared in just under 60 games, which is very good. I genuinely want to see a full year of Kristaps and the Boston Celtics going forward, so we can see what this entire team looks like from game 1 to game 82 and even into the postseason. Coming in at number 8, I have Chet Holmgren. At this point, I feel like Chet is a much more reliable player than Kristaps on both offense and defense, which is crazy to think about, because it's almost like Chet is the prototype of Kristaps, if that makes sense. But essentially, I feel like, and this is no hyperbole, like this is a genuine statement, if Chet wasn't on OKC and he was averaging the numbers that he's averaging, he would be an all-star, all-NBA kind of guy. Now, of course, he might not be first or second team, but he would likely be around that second, third team kind of area. I think his points per game would go up, because of course he would get more touches. He's not getting touches behind J-Dub and Shai Gilgeous, which of course gives him a lot less touches than he has now. Him being a 16.5 point, 8 rebounds per game, and almost 3 assists kind of guy is amazing for a player who kind of had to find his role within a team that he didn't really get to play on his rookie year. Now, of course, last year he played in all 82, which is a very good sign for Thunder fans going forward, that his rookie year injury wasn't a microcosm of what's going to come in the future. It was something that was just a one-off. It was a freak injury, of course, because we saw what happened. He was guarding Bron. I think Bron stepped on his foot, if I'm not mistaken, and he just had a Lisfranc injury, which it happens. But with that being said, Chet has gotten better game after game after game, and I absolutely love Chet in the role that he's in, but I genuinely feel like he can excel even better. I think if you put a guy like Chet where Evan Mobley is right now, the Cavs would be so much better than where they are right now, and that's a testament to how good Chet Holmgren and what he could provide to a team. Coming in at number 7, I have Alperen Sengun. Now, before I get into number 7 itself, Alpy, I do want to say Chet and Alpy are interchangeable. Those are two guys that I think you could put one over the other on any given day for the most part. Now, I think Alpy this year will have a breakout season. So far, he's had an amazing year. He's Jokic 2.0 in my eyes. He's a guy that can do pretty much what Jokic does. Obviously, he's not at that elite level quite yet because he's still young. However, he is able to still play that kind of role for that team. Jalen Green's almost a Jamal Murray 2.0, where, you know, both of them have a little bit more athleticism than their counterparts. Now, at this point, it's up to Ime Udoka and the team to, one, develop, but also get to that point where they're starting to win some ball games. Alpy averaged 21, 9, and 5 on 53% shooting from the field and a meager 30% from the 3 in 63 games. Now, of course, Alpy can get way better from the 3-point line. That is one thing that he does not match with regard to Jokic. But with that said, he's very young. He's only in his 3rd or 4th year, so that's gonna come along. Efficiency tends to come along with age, especially with a guy like Alpy, who he can't just be out there shot chucking. He's not one of those guys that can get away with that. Personally, this year I do want to see Alpy facilitate better. Not that he's a bad facilitator, but more so being able to anticipate, fill in that Jokic role a little bit more, to where you know what every single person is doing on the court, and you could pass the ball with essentially your eyes closed, the same kind of way that Jokic can. Coming in at number 6, we have the severely underrated Bam Adebayo, a guy that can guard 1 through 5, and you guys know I absolutely love defenders. He's one of those guys where I think he deserved one of those DPOYs that Rudy Gobert got. His playmaking is extremely underrated. He's oftentimes the play initiator for the Miami Heat, a team who was without a point guard for a lot of the time that they've had by him. Now, of course, they have Terry Rozier and a couple other guys there now, Kyle Lowry and stuff like that. But for the last 3-4 years or so, at least since COVID, they didn't really have a point guard after Goran Dragic left. Bam is averaging 19, 10, and 4 assists on 52% shooting and 35% from 3, and he played in 71 contests last year. Now, of course, last year was a very disappointing year for the Miami Heat, so Bam kind of flew under the radar. He was a middle of the pack in a lot of categories, but he's one of those players that he's a very undersized big. That's first of all. I think he's like 6'8", 6'9", if we're gonna be completely honest, but overall he can do just about anything on the floor. Now, I genuinely believe if he's able to move to a power forward position while the team has a more true center, it would bode so much better for the Miami Heat, because having Bam at that center position where he's forced to guard the likes of Embiid, where he's forced to guard the likes of Cat, who's now up in New York. He has to guard guys like Paolo and Wendell Carter Jr., who those are more his speed, at least in my opinion. But even still, those are still guards that are tough guards to deal with in the NBA. Now, of course, Bam is an amazing defender, so this hasn't been much of an issue for him. But with that being said, the Miami Heat just needs to build better around him or just get him out of there. It seems like one of those times where a change of scenery will do some good for both sides. Coming in at number 5, I have Domantas Sabonis. I was very, very low on Domas. I can't even lie to you. As we started to be made aware of that he's never lost to Anthony Davis more and more, especially me being a Lakers fan, it became one of those things where I was like, you know what, let me start to pay attention to Domas. Let me actually put forth the effort to, actually look at his game, look at the Kings and, stuff of that nature. And after doing so, dude is a dog. He's a stalwart as a big in the NBA. He averages 20 points, just under 14 rebounds, 8 assists, and he shoots 60% from the field and almost 40% from 3, playing in 82 ball games. The number one thing I love about Domas the most is he just plays the game right. No matter what, he's gonna make the right pass. He's extremely efficient as a shooter. He can shoot from the free throw line. He can lock up your best player, and he's one of those guys that is gonna be quiet and fly under the radar all while he does it. Him and Lauri Markkanen are they remind me a lot of each other because they're very, very good basketball players, but they're not talked about because they're just not essentially out there, so to speak, with regard to their character and personality and stuff. But overall, Domas is one of those players that you have to really watch for him when your team is playing them, because he can go off for 25 plus while also being able to, handle the management of touches for the Sacramento Kings. And it's a match made in heaven between him and De'Aaron Fox. Domas is one of those players that's supremely consistent through anything else. And I think this year he'll have a much better year to where they'll actually be able to make the play-in or even the playoffs at this junction. Now, it's going to be tough because the West is very, very stacked, but I think Domas will lead the Kings to that point at some point in this season. Coming in at number 4 as the 4th best center in the NBA, I have Victor Wembanyama. That rookie year said enough for me. Now, weirdly enough, this year, he is getting better, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot quieter. You have to actually pay attention to him and the team to see where they're developing, see what they're actually doing to get him better as a player, because in my humble opinion, I think it's very hard to see if you're not paying attention to the Spurs the way people were last year. I genuinely love the approach that Pop and the Spurs have taken, and whomever else is Victor Wembanyama's skill development trainer is in the offseason, because he's taking more shots, he's facilitating more, he has the ball on the perimeter a lot more with regard to him being the play initiator and actually starting sets and plays for the San Antonio Spurs, which I personally think is gonna help him in the future. It's gonna bode well because history repeats itself. The players that know what everybody needs to do on the floor as a whole, whether it's your team or the other team, tend to be the best players in our game. And with Victor Wembanyama at a 7'4" frame, being able to do that in his second year, that gives him the opportunity to actually be able to understand the game, learn the game, and be able to read and know the floor. His court mapping is gonna be amazing in in the next 4 to 5 years. He played in 71 games last year, averaging 21 and 10. And of course this year he has been real weird with regard to rebounding. But with that said, I think Wemby will consistently average around those numbers. Of course, his points per game is going to get up to that 26, 27 range, kind of like where Jokic is. I don't think he'll ever be like an Embiid where, you know, we saw Embiid last year averaging 34, 35 points. Of course, it was in, you know, pretty much half a season kind of sample size, but either way, I think Wemby will be more of a 25 to 28 point per game kind of guy when he gets to that level. Now, before we hop into the top 3, if you made it this long into the video, first of all, salute to you. I appreciate you.
Everybody's trying to play the right way. Salute.
And number 3 is Anthony Davis. Now, Anthony Davis averaged 25, 12, 4, 55% shooting from the field and just under 30% from 3 in 76 ball games. 76 ball games. That injury prone narrative, yeah, that was gone. If it wasn't gone last year, because it better have been gone last year, it's for sure gone this year, especially because AD is playing like a true MVP candidate. If we really want to talk about it, I'll put a video out for you guys. As of last year, because that's what this video is based on, AD was a guy who I finally saw really is playing how I need him to play on my team. When we traded for you, we got this. We got this AD. We didn't have him for like a good year and a half, 2 years. We don't know where you went. We don't know what happened. It was like the Monstars came and took over. But last year, you've shown me everything I needed to see to be confident in the Lakers going forward and you being the Lakers' future. Anthony Davis is the best defensive big in the NBA. I'm gonna say that without question. Shit, he deserves to have at least 1 or 2 more DPOYs than what he has right now. He's playing like an MVP, and of course, I hope the Lakers are good enough for him to be in that MVP conversation at some point in the season. But overall, just as a Laker fan, I love to see AD back to form, and you know, he's in his prime. A lot of people think he's older. He's not. He's in the thick of his prime. So at this moment, I genuinely feel like AD should really be vying for the best player in the league as opposed to just best defender in the league. And this year, he's making that statement be known. Coming in at number 2, and I battled with this because, you know, for a while, I had this guy above number 1. Now last year it felt a little bit different because when I watched number 1 last year, it made me like, how do you stop this guy? Like the only thing stopping him is ever injury. But we're gonna get to that. Number 2, I have Nikola Jokic. 26 point per game, 12.5 rebounds, 9 assists, 1.5 steals. And of course, he's always his efficient 60% from the field and 36% from deep. And he played in 79 contests. Now enough can't be said about Jokic. He's an offensive hub in his own right. I think he's quite literally changing how NBA teams build their teams by way of teams like the Houston Rockets. We see them building around a big and having other skill players around that big, so you know they could work off of him. And I genuinely think even though the Nuggets championship window may be closed by the end of this year, Jokic is one of the best bigs we've seen all time. Now of course his record-setting ways kind of forces people to think that way because you're just breaking record after record after record. But when you watch him, especially as a Laker fan, you can't do much with him. And this is coming from, again, a Laker fan who has Anthony Davis, who I just called the best defender in the league. He's guarding Jokic night in and night out, and even still Jokic he finds a way every single time. And even in the nights where Jokic doesn't have his best games, because we know Jamal Murray has had plenty of games where he carried the Nuggets to a win over the Lakers. Even on those nights, Jokic still finds a way to come up clutch, make a shot, make a great pass, something of that nature to help this team seal and close out to win the game. For a while, it was a love-hate relationship between me and Jokic, and again, it hurts to put him at number 2, but last year, Joel Embiid, and I know he only played in 40 games, but that same feeling that I got with Jokic with regard to who can really stop him, I feel that times 10 when it comes to Joel Embiid. He averages 35 points a game, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, just above 1 steal and 1 block, while shooting 53% from the field field and 40% from deep. And of course, he only played in about half the games last year, but we all know who Joel Embiid is, especially when healthy. And like I said before, the only thing that stopped him in his career thus far is injury. And it sucks to say, because it's like at this point, and I feel for you 76ers fans. I don't even like Philly fans, but I feel for you guys, because it's like, damn, he cannot catch a break. And I think if he could, just in 2 years, you probably could have 2 rings right now. I genuinely believe that. That year with Jimmy Butler, now of course that was off of a Kawhi shot, had nothing to do with Joel's injury, but pretty much every year after that, when the 76ers are ready to win, something unlucky happens to Joel Embiid. And I genuinely just want to see him healthy for a full year, not just regular season. I need to see him healthy for that deep run in the playoffs. He'll be okay for that first round, sometimes the second round. Every time when it comes to the conference finals, his body's just not right. I'm at the point where I want to see his body be right in those June, July months of the year. I hope this Olympic run during the summer didn't doom him for this year, because where he's at right now and the things that are said by Philly, it doesn't even sound like he's ready quite yet to even take the floor. Like, I recall their GM or someone from the organization coming out and saying he wasn't even playing 5-on-5 scrimmages. So I'm genuinely hoping it wasn't the Olympic run that got him to that bad state. Obviously, I don't think he'll be at the form he was last year. And shit, once it gets to a certain point of the season, once we get to the end of December, if he's still not regularly playing, I think y'all should think about, tying him up till, All-Star break. Because if PG and Tyrese Maxey can at least keep the 76ers afloat, and then you have Joel Embiid for the second half of the year as opposed to just the first half, it might work out for the 76ers going forward. You never know. That has been my top 10 centers in the NBA. If you made it to this point in the video, first of all, I appreciate you. Comment if you haven't already, like if you haven't already, and subscribe if you haven't already, because y'all are tweaking. A lot of y'all that are watching this video are not subscribed. 90% of you that watch my videos aren't subscribed. It's every video. It ain't just one video. So go ahead and subscribe. It takes like 2 seconds, I promise you. Secondly, if you watch this entire series, I appreciate you, because I think this is the first time I've genuinely finished a series start to finish. We're gonna have more. I'm gonna build up that endurance, that discipline to continue to do this. And like I said before a few weeks ago, TB is back. Thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you guys for watching this series. It is your boy TB with the greatest hoop stories and debates on the tube. And as always, I'm gonna see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.